Can I have a roll call, please, for those present?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Caroline Clement Williams.
I'm here, Jane.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
I'm here, Jane.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present, Jane.
Councillor Ted Latham.
Yeah, present, Jane.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Jane.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Jane.
Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Jane.
Councillor Rob Jones.
Yes, here, Jane.
Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Present, Jane.
Councillor Harvey.
Yep, present, Jane.
I'll just go on to officers now. Karen Jones.
Present.
Howell Jenkins.
Present.
Aled Evans.
Present.
Andrew Jarrett.
Present.
Nicola Pearce.
Present, Jane.
Craig Griffiths.
Present, Jane.
Rob Davis. Hugh Jones.
Yes, present, Jane.
Charlotte Davis.
Present.
Is there anyone else who I have not called on the roll call who is participating in today's meeting? That's it then, Chair. The roll call has been completed.
Thank you, Jane. Item 2 is declarations of interest. I think at least one here. So, Chief Exec, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I need to declare an interest in item 7, which deals with indemnities related to my role as returning officer and assistant returning officer. So I'll be stepping out of the meeting for that item.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other declarations? I've seen none indicated. Therefore, excuse me, moving to item 3, the revenue budget. Are there any further observations or information from officers?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members? I've seen none indicated. Then for move to the recommendation on page 20. There are 5 recommendations. Recommendation 1 is to approve the environment. Recommendation 2 is to note the issues. Recommendation 3 is for the council to work with Welsh Government as outlined in the report. Recommendation 4 is to note the additional grants, and recommendation 5 is to seek additional funding. I move those recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone abstain or object? I see no indications, therefore that item is approved. Moving to item 4, the capital programme monitoring report. Any further information or observations from officers?
Chair, I just wanted to highlight that despite the impact of COVID, etc., there's significant works and investment taking place across the county borough in a large number of projects. And you can see there that the proposed budget for delivery this year now is £70.6 million. And that's a significant improvement in assets, infrastructure that the council will have to deliver services from this year onwards.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Councillor Clement Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to second everything that Howell has just said. But just for some, if there's anyone listening into this meeting, just to explain, I sometimes hear people saying, well, instead of spending money on a capital project, why don't they spend it on, say, schools or whatever? And it's just to explain that they are separate, and capital money has to be spent on capital programmes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments from members? I see none. Carol, is that a legacy hand? Yeah, okay. I see none indicated. Therefore, moving to the recommendation on page 33, there are 3 recommendations to approve and recommend to council. Item 2 to approve the budget in total, and item 3 to note the expenditure as of the 31st of December 2020. I move those recommendations. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone abstain or object to those recommendations? I've seen none indicated, therefore that item is approved. Item 5, the Treasury Management Monitoring Report. This item is just for noting. any further observations from officers?
Yes, Leader. I think there's a date missing on the table on page 39. If Hugh corrects me, I think it's 25th of, is it 25th of January?
Yes, it should read 25th of January under the Lloyds Bank, excuse me, investment.
So if we can include that in the minutes. Apologies for missing out the full date on that one, Leader. But it's important that the members are aware that we are required to submit this as part of the Treasury Management Strategy Policy, and I just wanted to correct that at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Any comments or questions from members? So there will be an additional amendment 2 to that. Mr. Jenkins to take 500 lines saying I must not leave out dates on reports and to include that report to include the date of the 25th of January. But I seen Mr. Jones putting his hand up there, so I think he was going to take one for the team there and say that it was his fault.
I was going to say I'll do the lines, Leader.
Okay,
that's for me.
Okay, so with that amendment, that report is there for noting, but are members now happy to add that amendment? Anyone object or abstain? No, so therefore that amendment is carried and the report is noted. Item 6 is the draft budget for consultation. Anything further to add from officers?
Not really, Chair. Just to say that these are draft proposals to go out to public consultation. Once you have considered the report today, consultation will take place till the 12th of February. And as you mentioned in scrutiny, there are no proposals to make budget cuts as part of these proposals, but we plan to use 3.1 million from reserves and need to generate additional council tax of 3.75% in order to have a sustainable budget for the coming year.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. I try not to get involved in scrutiny matters. That's for the scrutiny committee, but there was a direct response there from Councillor Hunt for me to respond, which is why I did. Councillor Clement Williams, please.
Chair, I'd just like to put on the record my thanks as well. I add them to the thanks that have already been given to Howell, Hugh and the whole team. If they can pass those thanks back down to our staff, that would be appreciated. It was mentioned by one member about Welsh Government money, and we lobby hard on money. Believe me, we squeeze every last drop out of them if we can. But just to remind members that Welsh Government get money from Westminster. Up until very, very recently, they haven't had any powers to put it in new taxes and get extra money, and there's restrictions on what we can borrow. So to be fair to Welsh Government, they have supported us really well during the COVID crisis. And I know that if they did have extra money, they would give it to us. And they have prioritised local government more than usual, but obviously health is a huge pressure on Welsh Government as well. There was also a comment about feedback. We take feedback from all areas. If we have responses on Facebook, if we have written responses, if we have emails, all responses are taken into account. And on the council tax issue, it was brought up that some people due to COVID may have lost their jobs, etc. We're all well aware of that and the pressures on the public, and we are here to support anyone who has any trouble in paying. And this is why we're investing an extra £500,000 into the council tax support grant, so that we can support those people that are unable to pay. We're not trying to make people who are unable to pay pay. And if anyone finds themselves in a position where they can't pay as a result of loss of earnings or anything, they need to inform us. We have welfare support that can advise them on what they're entitled to claim if they need to, and we can also work out payment plans, etc. if we have to. So we are there to support those people in this community, and that's what council tax support is actually there for. So we do take that into consideration. We do take that very, very seriously. But as the leader mentioned earlier, it is a consultation, and once all the feedback has been looked at, and we have discussions on where we go with that, then the final council tax demand will be decided then. So yes, please, as many people, if you can contact npt.gov.uk/consultations and leave us any feedback that you may have for us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Peter Rees, please.
Thank you, Leader. Just a few words to say, put on record my thanks to Carol for the amount of lobbying that she's done at WLGA. I know I've had a conversation with John Ray and how he holds her in such high esteem and the work that she's been doing on behalf of the council. So thank you for that, Carol. And the other point I would like to make is I hope that Stephen Hunt is going to come forward with some suggestions of how we can lower our council tax. You know, it'd be interesting to see what he comes up with. I have to hear this verbiage every year from Councillor Hunt, and it gets a bit tiring, Leader.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you both. Can I ask you both to put your hands down? Interestingly, and Carol was on the call this morning, as was Councillor Peter Richards. We were in a discussion over social services and the funding of social services going forward, and Carol mentioned about funding from UK government, but they were looking at options including income tax charging to raise monies for the difference between running social services and what is required. And I also think I'm right in saying that even though we keep on about the legacy from 1996, the RSG and the SSA are becoming smaller and smaller, the difference between the gap over the years. So we're obviously doing something right in relation to the monies that we are getting and how we use that money. Okay, the recommendation here, unless anyone's got any other observations, and I'm not seeing any indications, is on page 59 of the report, which is to go out to consult on the proposed budget. I move that recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'll second that, Chair.
Anyone abstain or object from that? Therefore, that item is carried. Item 7, I got a declaration, so therefore, Karen, I'll have to ask you now if you can leave the meeting.
I'm just checking, Chair, to make sure that Karen has left. Yes, Karen Jones has left the meeting.
Thank you very much, Jane. Therefore, moving to item 7 is the returning office and acting returning officers indemnity. This wasn't scrutinised. Mr. Griffiths, is there anything you wish to add to this report?
No, nothing at all, Leader.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from any members? I'm seeing none indicated, therefore move to the recommendation on page 77 for the council to provide an indemnity to the chief exec in relation to the role as outlined in the report. I move that recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone abstain or object? I can't see any indications, therefore that item is approved. Can you ask Karen if she can come back in, please, Jane?
Yes, Chair. Karen is now back in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Item 8, urgent items. I haven't been notified of any urgent items. Item 9, access to meetings. The resolve to exclude the public from the following items of business pursuant to Regulation 4(3) and 5 of the Statutory Instrument 2001 number 2290 and the undermentioned exemption paragraphs of Part 4 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. If there are members of the public or the press, I now have to ask you to leave.